Okay, so right now, Growlanser 6 is the last game in the series we're going to be covering before we jump into the Langaser series, which is the series that came before Growlanser. The artwork was done before the same guy. The Langaser series is kind of a little bit harder to play. It started on the Mega Drive system, and then unlike PlayStation, it pretty much was released on on Sega Saturn for the most part. So I'll have to figure out how to get into that. But anyways, I can start with 3 though, because it's on the PS2, which is cool. So and I think there's some on the PS1, but I like I said, I had to check. Anyways, so Growlanser 6 takes place in it's a sequel to 5. And technically speaking, it's really the 7th Growlanser game because, if we're counting the side games and not the remakes, it would be the 7th game in the story because, it's pretty much the 6th and final game, or the 7th one rather. So what's really cool about this game is, it again, like all the other Growlanser games, it's another 3D sort of base game. There's a lot of characters from the 5th game that came back. And what's really interesting about this game is, it talks about like how there's time travel, again, same elements from the other games, there's a bunch of mystical forces from other dimensions and all that. You gotta figure out how to be a Growlanser again. You have to figure out how to, again, there's a lot of skills and trees. It's probably the most complex Growlanser game, to really understand, because there's so many different variables to it, so many different skills. Again, there's a lot to it. But again, if you've played all the other Growlanser games, it really shouldn't be anything new. Something you haven't already seen. But it still offers new stuff, though, which is cool. I think there's more spells in this game, too, if I remember correctly. What's really cool is there's 40 different characters that you'll run across. There's a lot of characters in this game. Minor characters, main characters. How many you get to play, that's still kind of debatable. Again, I'd have to play through 6 100%. How many routes there are, how many endings there are. There's a lot of endings. That's another thing I forgot to mention. All the Growlanser games usually have at least 10 to 40 something endings. Maybe even 50 if you're lucky. I know Growlanser 4 had 50 almost. I think it was more or less close to 42, maybe 44, somewhere around there. It's a lot. It really is. So there's definitely more than one playthrough. That's how I'll advertise it. There's definitely more than one playthrough, more than one route. Again, getting different endings, different character endings for each character. So it's real easy to really figure out where every event's located at, and it might even be possible that you might forget where certain things are saved at. So you might forget when you're playing the game, there might be different routes you might have to check, and one-time only events that can trigger that you can very well miss. And unless you trigger it, you could very well miss out on something that could have been there. So again, a different ending or a different character trait. You get what I'm saying. Again, we've played games like this before. Probably one of the most important things to any game as well, if you really think about it. But anyways, so the idea is that the story goes that there are 3 kingdoms that are divided, and what ends up happening is the main kingdom, the one that you fight for rather in this case, is under attack from a rebellious group. Now, if you actually remember how in Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, how there was that rebellious group that rose up against the ones with when Geoffrey and the one that took place in chapter 2, I believe, the one that because it was divided into 4 sections. The one where you played as Princess, or now Queen Alicia, if I remember correctly, the one with the long green hair, and she was beautiful. So yeah, that group. So you have to really think though that the way Growlanser 6 works is that they're sort of faced with the same problem, where there's another rebellious group in the works, and they all have these cold-hearted assassins and rebellious material, and again, if you've played other games, you know this, and they try to essentially overthrow the Alliance. Now, at some point in time, they also find a way that there's an even bigger threat as well, but at the same time, it still lies within their territory as well. And you find out that you're trying to you're trying to stop them, but then they're trying to stop like these mystical forces that are ruining the land, as well as the monarchy and the kingdom. Again, it really depends on the characters, what side they're on, who's fighting, and what cause they're fighting for. Because really, that's what you really try to figure out in Growlanser, you know, who's who and what's what. But essentially, what you really have to know about 6 is that it's probably the longest one, if I remember correctly. It's either that or it's 4. There are a lot of characters, like I said, there's a lot of characters from the 5th game to the 6th, some of them just show up and, like, you know, they, like, time traveled out of nowhere and landed in this time period. Again, space time travelers. You got the Featherians and the Grotians again, so there's that. The Groshu, I believe, is still present, so people can still learn, like, sacred magic and all that. There's a lot of, so you want to really figure out like who your spellcasters are and all that, so you start separating their powerful causes and magic and support magic and base black magic and all that. Really, it comes down to just knowing the game's mechanics. Probably digging deeper into it than most games you probably ever played, because that's usually how you play Growlanser. I would say probably Growlanser 6 wasn't really nearly as hard as like from what I've seen, like 6 and 4 were probably like completely different, but like 4 and 1 are probably the hardest ones I've played. 2 and 3 and 5. 5 can be hard too in some cases. I mean, they're all hard games, but some of them are just way harder than others. Not because they're unbalanced, but because like just the missions they have you do and some of the elements you have to really put up with. You know, war's not easy. It really depends on who you're fighting, and it's like a competition. You have to really think about it. And so, if I had to say anything about Growlanser 6, it would be that it's a long game in the sense that it's Japanese only, but you essentially have to understand that, you know, I'm sure you could find like some sort of a guide for it. You could probably get the game for like $20 if you want to get a used copy, or you could just find the ISO on the internet if you want to really look for it. Again, contact me either way. I can help you out if you're, you know, whatever you need help with, you know, just let me know. Because some of these games, you can't find some of these games as easy anymore. I'm just glad that some of these games, even if you want to buy like a physical copy, you just like somewhere around there, they're like a certain price. But I mean, I've got all the Growlancer games, and so it's not technically illegal if I own the copies. But you know, it's always a good idea to back up your games too. So again, let's see, what was I going to say? Okay, so in Growlanser 6, essentially, you really have to just, you know, there's probably right around 40 to 50 endings last I checked. But at the same time, though, there are some endings that you can't get all the endings on a single playthrough. Like I said, you have to really sit down and like find a clever way to save up just one point, take a different path, and then just go through the game as fast as you can. It's kind of like that, sort of. But you really have to, again, every game is different. Growlancer seems to be like, you know, all the games are programmed differently. It still takes the same approach that 5 did. You could say that 5 was built right off the same engine. 6 is built right off the same engine. And so really what you have to do is everything that was in 5 you can essentially do in 6. There are different things in 6 as well that I forgot to mention. There is a character creation guide as well. Unlike all the other games in the series, you can actually create your own character, last I checked, or some sort of customization. There's a lot more customizations in 6 than there are in the other games. It's actually really interesting. I don't know exactly 100% how that works. Again, I'll have to show you once I do a guide of it, but because this is the only Japanese version in the game, there's no English version of this, it's whatever's in the Japanese version. So it's not like version differences, there's just one version of the game, last I checked. And that's cool, because at least we can keep it simplified then, in this case. So, but there's still a lot of stuff in this game to really go sorting through. Another thing that's really interesting, there are a lot of different armies in this game. There's so many different armies, aside from the main three, and it seems like they always change direction and shifts at a certain point, so it makes you wonder like how to really take care of that, which is actually pretty cool. So, last I checked, I would say Growlanser 6 is probably one of the longest ones. Maybe one of the more balanced ones, too. But, needless to say, you will beat 6 at some point, though, so... But again, play 5 first. Again, I don't want to spoil too much of it, because... I hope they make a 7th game, or like a Growlancer 7, if they ever do. Because, oh boy, that'd be awesome. But, yeah, jumping into Langster. Linkser, or however you pronounce it. That would actually be a cool series. It's also a lot. It kind of reminds me of Outlaw Star with the way the artwork looked. And what was her name? Aisha? The cat?